Hello everyone, in this video we will learn about Godot's array functions. So as you may or may not know, an array in Godot and pretty much in every programming language is a list of some elements, and in Godot it can be any type of elements. It can be numbers, it can be booleans, it can be strings as well, or even Godot's own types. So in this video, I will talk about those different functions that you can do with array. So first, let's do an array of 3 elements. Let's do 0, 1, and 2. And here, I'm just gonna write in function ready function to not get any errors. Here, I'm gonna write different functions that you can do with the array. So first, let's start with all. So all here allows if we have a function which, let's say, is greater than 3, and we pass in an argument, and here we do return argument more than 3. Basically, if argument is more than 3, this will return true. If not, it will return false. And here inside there can be 2 different things, actually 3 things. There can also be the simple name of the function. It can be a lambda function, which I will show you in a second, or it can be a callable. So callable here is going to be self, and here it's going to be the name of the thing. So is greater than 3. And basically all different elements need this dot all calls this function like callable. So callable is a function here, and if all of these returns are true, then this entire array.all will be true as well. In this case, if I run it, and I of course put this in print, we'll get a false because not all of the numbers, and in this case none of the numbers are greater than 3. Other way, instead of doing this, would be, instead of using this function, you can do a lambda function, which would be look something like this. So func with an argument, which will be the element which is checking, then a semicolon, and here return arg or then 3. Now if I run this, again we get false, but if I do, let's say, less than 3, that it checks if all the elements of array are less than 3. If we call it, you can see that it's true. The second one is any. It works almost the same way as the all one, but instead of being, imagine it's a big if element of all the arrays being checked. So all would be and, like, you know, element 1, element 2, element 3, and so on. All of these become or, because we check if any of the elements is, in this case, less than 3. So if I do, let's say, more than 2, or in this case, more than 1, if we run it, we're gonna get true because one of the elements, which is the second one, 0, 1, 2, the third one is equal to 2, so this counts. Now if I do, let's say, do 2, this will not work because none of the numbers are greater than 2. Now let's go to a basic one, array.append. This will add a new element to the back of the array. So if we name it like 3, let's say, and let's print the array, you will get the first 3 elements we had and a new one, which we appended. Another really similar to append is append array. What's the difference between append and append array is basically, instead of it being one element, we basically mash 2 arrays together. So I'm gonna have a second array, which will have elements 3, 4, and 5. And if we append array to the first array, we append second array, and we print out array. You can see that it mashes both of them. First, it's the one we had at the start, and then what we wanted to add. Of course, you can, instead of having an array, you can just have the array elements listed like that. Next one on the list is assign. Basically, if we have assign, and here we can have another array. So we will use the second array, and you will see what this does. First, we have 0, 1, and 2. And if we start the game, we will see 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. So what this does, basically, it's really similar to this. In simple terms, to this one, we just assign all of these values. Basically, we copy this to this. Now, what's the difference between doing this right here and array equal to array.2 underscore 2 is because this one copies the pointer. Basically, if you change something in, if you do this and then you change something in the array, it will also change the element in array 2. They're like basically just two identical copies of each other. In this method, you make it as a duplicate. Array becomes this one, but it becomes its own unique thing. Back basically just returns the last element of array, and it returns null if the array doesn't exist. The same goes for front. Basically, if we do dot front, we get the first element and we get null if the array is empty. Array.clear simply clears all the elements in an array. So if we do this and we do this, it will return an empty array since it cleared it. Array.count, and in the bracket, in the parentheses, we add, let's say, a variable 0. It will return how many of this value is inside the array. So in this case, it will be 1, since we have only 1 0. Now, as I talked just before, array equal to array2 will make just a copy of it. So if something changes in this one, it also changes in this one. If you want to have two of the same array copies, but each other not be affected by each other, you just do dot duplicate. So now anything you change in this one will not affect the second one. Array dot erase. And in this case, we add a value of what element we want to remove. So in this case, let's do 1, print it. And here it will show us 0 and 2, but it basically erases the first appearance of the 1. So if we had multiple ones, it would only remove the first one. If it had 0 ones, nothing would happen. Array.fill, and in this, let's do 5. When we fill with 5s, all the current elements become the variable inside here. Filter works by calling a lambda function or a callable. So in this case, we will do the argument. And here we return if argument is more than 1. And let's print it out. It will return an array of the elements which meet this criteria. So in this case, it's only 2 because the only element bigger than 1 is a 2. Array.find with a variable name, an element name. So let's do 2. This, if we run, it will return the index position in the elements of the array. So in this case, 0, 1, 2 is the 2, and it finds the first occurrence of this value. Now, however, if we do, let's say 1 and do 2, basically searching for ones from the second element, so in our case, it would be from our 2, it will return -1, since we are only looking from this to the end of the array. Array.getTyped built in, and if we do type off, we will get what type of elements does it have inside. So if I run this, it will return a 2. And if we go into global scope and look at these variable.type, you can see that 2 equals to int, since this is our array inside elements. Array.has, let's say a 1. If we run it, we will get true, since this variable right here is inside the array. If we do, let's say 3, we will get false, since there is no element with this value. Array.hash returns a 32-bit hashed version of the array. I will not tell you about this, but you should be able to figure it out. Array.insert will insert into this position this value, and you can see that it will return 0 if it is successful, But if you make up a position which is very outside the array, it will return an error. And you can see that after inserting into the first position, which is after the 0, we get 0, 1, 1, 2. Array.empty simply returns if the array is empty or not with a true or false value. Array.isReadOnly returns true if the array cannot be overwritten and can only be read. Array.is_same_typed and a second array will return true if both of the arrays have the same type. So this is int, so this will return true. If this was float, let's say, and this was int, it would return false. Array.makeReadOnly makes the array only readable and it cannot be overwritten. Array.map allows you to perform action for each element by calling a function. So here we can also create a new function, which would be add, and it's going to be the argument. And here, if we return arg +1, and here if we do callable self and then add, it will change all the elements to have +1 in them. .max returns the maximum value and .min returns the minimum value of the array. So max would be 2 and minimum would be 0. Array.pick_random will pick a random element and return it. If the array is empty, it will return null. Array.pop@, and a position will remove the element and at this position, and it will return the value of the removed element. So in this case, we remove the first one, which is a 1, and then when we get the array, we don't have a 1 anymore. Array.pop_back removes the last element. Array.pop_front removes the first element. Array.push_back appends this value to the back of the array, basically the same as append. Array.push_front adds this to the front of the array. Array.remove_at, and with a position removes the element at this position. Array.resize, and a number of elements you want in the new array will resize the current array. If this number is greater than the current ones, it will add new elements which will be equal to null most of the time. And if the resize value of elements is lower than the current one, it will remove the current elements. Array.reverse basically just reverses the array, and the first value becomes the last, the last becomes the first. Array.rfind works the same as find, just in reversed order. So it returns the last occurrent element's index of this value. Array.shuffle shuffles all the elements in a random order. Array.size returns the current size of the array. Array.slice returns a new array of the elements from this index to the last index plus 1. So it's exclusive. And here you can add the steps, one step of element check. So if this is 2, then it checks every second element. So starting from the first one. So this, because the step is 2, this will not check this one, but it will check this one because array.size is 3 in this case. So the second index, which is 2, is also included. So it will return 0 and 2. Array.sort sorts the array from the smallest to largest. Array.sort_custom, and having a function name here with 2 arguments. The first checked element and the second one. We do an if statement. If A is bigger than B, then it returns true, which means that we will switch these together in the array. And if they're not, if A is not bigger than B, then we return false. That means that we don't want to switch them. If we run, we can see that it returns a reversed order, sorting from biggest to lowest number. Array.bsearch returns the index of the selected value in the array, which would be sorted. And if this provided value is not inside the array, it will tell you at what index it should be inserted in for it to still be sorted. bsearch custom works similarly to bsearch, but in this case, we use not from the elements are not in the ascending order, but in the custom sort algorithm, which will be put here. So that is pretty much it. Thank you for watching and goodbye.